Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. I wanted to do a quick spread with you guys. This is my journal that I had started back in July, I believe. That was supposed to be for my first junk journal. July, I think is what it is. Obviously, it is no longer July. But I want to finish this journal. I think I said it the last time we did a spread in this journal. I do want to finish it because it is the first journal that I made myself. I have some of my favorite crystals here with me. This is an celestial. I don't remember quite what this is, but we are doing, look at how pretty that is. We are doing a spread for fairies today. That is one of the main themes, other than tea parties, I would say. It's like one of the things that pops up in my journal spreads a lot, because fairies are like one of the things that I have been obsessed with since I was a kid. So I pulled out some ephemera and papers, and we're just gonna do a quick little journal spread, and probably add some glitter to it at the very end for some fairy dust. So since I was a kid, the idea of fairies has been absolutely enchanting. I know I'm not alone in that. I obviously read all of the Chronicles of Narnia, which doesn't really have fairies, but has like fairy type creatures. It has like gnomes and fauns and things like that. And then like later on in life, I actually didn't discover it, but I actually didn't read any of the Lord of the Rings books until I saw the first Fellowship of the Ring, till I saw that movie. I have this glitter paper here that I got from a paper pack from Megan and the Moon. I'm probably going to use that because glitter, right? But anyways, I didn't, I wasn't super familiar with Lord of the Rings, and then I fell into it hard. But, and that was when I was in junior high, or right before junior high that came out. Anyways, I obviously fell head over heels. I was on the fan fiction sites quite a bit, because I just could not get enough. But when I was in 5th grade, I was particularly fascinated with it. I actually wrote a little play that it was a group class called Connections. It was for gifted kids. I think a lot of millennials had I think that it's more of a common experience for millennials that you were labeled as a gifted kid in school and maybe had issues later in life, or certain things came to light later in life. That's what happened with me anyways, and I know I've seen other people attest to that online. But I wrote a little play about a fairy kingdom. I don't remember the details, and going through years of alcoholism and just not being an overly sentimental person, I did not save anything, and I don't believe that my mom did, although I might have to ask her about it. And so it was really cool. We were in this gifted program, and one of the things that I focused on because I wanted to be a writer was I was allowed to focus on creative writing specifically for this class. And so that's what I did, and part of that was writing that play, and we actually ended up acting it out for I was able to kind of direct to this little play. I am not a super huge theater person. I wasn't a theater kid in school or anything. This was just there was a couple instances where I was involved in theater really young in life, and then it kind of dwindled. But I thought that was kind of fun, and it always kind of stuck with me that was something I was fascinated in. And then my 5th grade teacher is someone who actually had a very huge impact on me as far as like confidence-wise and I don't know, just like believing in myself and taking pride in the fact that I was a bit different. And at the end of the 5th grade year, she gave me a card, and it was a card with little garden fairies on it. Obviously, as I got older, I learned more about fairies and the fact that like fairy folklore, it's a little scary. Fairies aren't like the cute little pixies that are always pictured. I have this fun sticker paper that I got from Megan and the Moon. I'm just gonna cut a little heart out. But fairies aren't like the cute, cuddly, like pixie, adorable things that are portrayed in media. And I learned that later on in life, as I think some of us did. So, oh no. That's okay. I will just add some glitter to this page. I accidentally ripped it. I just wanted to like make it a little bit like sparkly right here. And that works just fine. But you know, now that I am an adult and I've like been studying folklore a little bit more and obviously into these different kinds of tales, it is interesting to learn about like the darker side of things and how you know, fairies were pretty much like the reasoning behind a lot of natural events and catastrophes. And there was a lot of reverence shown with it, and it's like how a lot of different cultures, specifically like the Celtic cultures, would work and have relationship with the land was like respect of the fairies. And I am definitely like a novice when it comes to this stuff. It is just something I really am fascinated by and that I enjoy learning about. But I did find out that my ancestry is from Scotland, mainly from Scotland, Ireland, and Britain and Germany, with a little, and then like that's like half, and then the other half is French. But I thought it was interesting because it's one of those things that I've just always been naturally drawn to. So I'm just kind of following along that path of learning. And like I said, it is really fascinating to find out that how fairy folklore was kind of this thing that was like built into society, that was built in. So, and like stuff was just kind of attributed to the fairies, things that now we can look at and say like, well, obviously, you know, this was like a natural disaster, a natural event or something. But you know, number one, I think it's a lot more fun to say it was fairies. But number two, I think it's really interesting that this kind of stuff maintains so well in a culture, especially you know, when a culture faces being colonized and like forced to convert. But things like things like the fairies and that those kind of myths actually survive. You can see I'm stumbling over my words a little bit because number one, I have not had my coffee this morning. And number two, I don't talk about this a lot with everybody. And so it's actually kind of difficult to put into words. And I actually also want to be respectful. I'm not trying to educate about this. This is a little flower teacup stamp that I have. I think I had it like since I was a kid. It made in 1999. There's a lot of stamps that I found later, and then I also was gifted some from family. anyways, there's a lot of people who have done a lot more research into things like actual fairy folklore, and who know a lot more than me, and those are if you're like looking to learn about it, those are the types of places that you should go to. I am not here to educate. I'm just journaling with my friends, which would be you guys, and sharing something that interests me. So this week I am like listening to podcasts and books and watching YouTube videos that have to do with fairies. I also learning, I learned previously about the I'm gonna mispronounce this, the hold the folk, which I initially learned was like an Icelandic thing. It was the hidden people from Iceland, which are elves. Kind of led me back down this path. Like I said in a previous video, that the hyperfixation leads where the hyperfixation leads sometimes, and this week it happens to lead back to fairies. So I am just going with it. Oh, there we go. I mentioned in my last video that you guys should definitely submit if you have any questions for like a Q&A episode, and I have not gotten like a whole lot of questions asked, and I wanted to address one that I had gotten specifically, which was to talk about being neurodivergent. This is another thing where I was just diagnosed with ADHD last year. I think it was like right before summer started. So this is another thing where I am also not an expert. I can only really talk about my experience and like what I know. And that's not a whole lot. I started learning more about neurodivergence when my son was diagnosed with autism back in 2020, the beginning of 2021, and kind of went from there. I know people who have also been diagnosed with ADHD, and I just wanted to like learn more about that. And as I've mentioned in other videos, I'm actually I think this is too big. I'm gonna do something different, I think. As I've mentioned in previous videos, I'm also been diagnosed as bipolar. So I did not think that I did not think that I was ADHD for a long time, specifically because of this other diagnosis. And it wasn't until I was really struggling in my day-to-day of just like being able to get things done and being able to live my life as a stay-at-home mom in a way that helped my family, because that's kind of like the point of me staying home, is to, you know, help ease some of, I don't want to say burden because it's not a burden, but that's my job, is to help take care of my family. And so when I found myself struggling with that, like obviously that's not just a neurodivergent thing, but it was just like the following through and focusing on certain tasks, and there was just a lot of struggle there. And it was leading to a lot of depressive episodes for me in particular, because that is something I already struggle with. And I didn't really know what to do, because I had removed the stress of my job and logistics from my life. And so other than the stress of taking care of kids, which is very stressful, but other than that, like I didn't know what else I could do. So I went and I talked to my doctor, and I told her, I was like, listen, I have people that I'm related to who have struggled with ADHD. I have been learning more about it as I've been watching and reading things on the internet, and I don't know, but this is what I'm experiencing. And she agreed to she said that it was probably a good idea for me to try some medication. I'm going to add this it's the back of a Starbucks sleeve. I'm going to add this for some texture. But she agreed to let me try some ADHD medication. She thought that that would be a good idea. Specifically because like when you're a stay-at-home mom and I have 2 small kids and I'm dealing with, you know, helping my son with his different therapies, and we've been driving a lot and we have a lot of commitments. There's just a lot to keep track of, and it makes my day-to-day life incredibly difficult when it just feels like I cannot function. And that honestly is the point that it got to last summer when I finally decided that enough was enough and that I just had to talk to them and see if I could get some help. And it helped tremendously. I started taking medicine for my ADHD. It is very like low grade. I'm not gonna say it on a YouTube video, but it's not like a controlled substance or anything. It is like one of the lowest, one of the less intense, I'm trying to look for the correct words, medication, but it's one of the less intense medications that you can be prescribed for ADHD. At least that's what I was told. And so I thought that that was a good idea. I don't need anything super intense. I just need to be able to function throughout my day. And so that is what we tried, and it has helped me tremendously. Words cannot even I cannot even tell you guys how much it's changed my life. I definitely still have issues as far as like getting through my day to day, and I suffer from a lot of memory issues. So if I ever tell you I'm going to do something and then I don't, it's probably because I forgot. But that also is something that happens a lot with people who suffered for years with active addiction. So as you can see, I have a lot of stuff going on. It just makes it very hard to pin down exactly what it is that, you know, causes these things. But the medication has helped, like a lot. And trigger warning for anybody who has issues with eating disorders. I'll give you a couple minutes here I'm going to talk about my own personal issues, which is that I struggled with just binge eating constantly. There were other factors that came into play, like when I was younger, later teen years, early 20s. But one of my biggest issues was binge eating. I just couldn't stop eating ever. And I just always had to be eating, especially like it was something that I did to make certain things more interesting. Like if I had to drive, I had to have a snack. And I personally now, after doing the research that I've done, I think that that is a symptom of ADHD. I think that my mind needed something to keep me focused on the task at hand. And it just so happened to be food most of the time. It's this, you know, it's the same reason like I need to have like a fun little drink for when I am driving, or if I'm gonna be doing something that I don't want to do. I need a good book or podcast to listen to if I'm gonna get any cleaning done. You know, I had found certain things that worked after so much time, but it took me a long time to get to that point. And obviously there were many years in my life where I struggled to get pretty much anything done because I had this force kind of like, I don't want to say working against me. That sounds a little dramatic, but it was like I was trying to live my life by a set of parameters that were set by people whose brains did not work like me. And it just didn't work. This is probably going to be the last little bit that I add, but I've got some glitterific folk art paint. And I was reading, I'm going to share something with you guys after I do this. This might take a minute. But anyways, yeah, it takes it takes a lot for me to get going. It takes a lot for me to follow through on things. There's a lot of shame and like negative self-talk associated with like being an undiagnosed neurodivergent for most of your life, especially like with the AD. I can't speak to autism or other types of neurodivergence, but I can say as far as like dealing with ADHD for many years and not knowing it, and then finding out later and being like, oh, well, that's what was going on. It's like trying to solve an equation with only half the information. It's like I said, it's like trying to live in a world where everybody else has a different brain than you, and those are the rules you're supposed to follow. And it's like, but it doesn't make any sense. And ooh, that smeared a little bit. Whoops. That's okay though. And so being medicated, I've gotten my binge eating under control. I did lose a lot of weight at first, but I was eating regularly. I had my husband help monitor me with that to make sure that I didn't slip into any bad habits. But I lost a lot of weight because the binge eating was all of a sudden under control. My water intake got a lot better. I was able to hold appointments. My memory has improved. I've been able to dive even further into the habits and interests that I want and have. It's all things that I had a hard time finding time and energy and focus for previously. So all of that to say, if you struggle with anything, I would do your reading and research at home first. But I think if you know anything about researching medical stuff on the internet, you know that you can probably find a list of symptoms anywhere that will tell you that you have XYZ. So if it's something that you're like actually concerned about or that you're curious about, you can always bring it up to your doctor. That's what I usually tell people, and that's what helped me. Everybody's journey is going to be a bit different. I just wanted to share that because someone specifically asked, and it has been something that has been extremely revelatory for me this past year. And I'm incredibly grateful that I've had the opportunity to learn that about myself. But there's also been a lot of grief because I've been living my life. It almost seems like I've been living my life with like one of my like hands tied behind my back, just trying to figure things out without having access to everything that could have helped me is kind of, I guess, the gist of that. I don't know. This is my fairy spread that we made together. I've got some of my trash journaling stuff here. I've got some little bits and bobs, some glitter, holographic paper. I smeared some ink here. That's okay. I think it gives it a little bit more of like a trippy vibe. I really like this chunky glitter. This little fairy that I cut out here is from this book, the Fairy Handbook. Let me see if I can get this in camera. The Fairy Handbook is a enchanted compendium of literature, lore, art, recipes, and projects from the editors of the Fairy magazine. This is something I got 5 or 6 years ago. No, it was like 5 years ago at a Barnes & Noble. I enjoy reading through it and getting ideas for different craft projects and learning different little bits of folklore. But I also really love it for the pretty pictures, and this is a little tidbit that I got from it. This here is a heart cut out from a vintage fairy book page, and everything else is like just random papers, handmade. Thanks for coming along with this little journal with me today, you guys. I hope that you have a lovely week, and drop any questions in the comments if you have them. I also am just grateful that you guys are here. Have a lovely week, okay?